We begin in the Central African Republic, still mired in strife nearly a year after a coup that saw mainly Muslim rebels topple President Francois Bozize.
Thousands have died in the violence between majority Christians and minority Muslims, and the clashes just keep getting worse, despite the presence of thousands of peacekeeping troops.
VOA correspondent Gabe Joselow has traveled to the CAR, and we talked about the former French colony's growing interreligious conflict.
Now, CAR is about 15% Muslim. The rest of the population is pretty much Christian. So what we're seeing now is a rift between Muslim and Christian communities, and basically these militia groups have aligned based on these religious lines. And so that's like a very troubling aspect of this conflict, and it's a problem that did not exist in the Central African Republic before the coup last year.
Now, Gabe, French and African peacekeepers went in to try to calm these tensions, but how much are they actually helping? Because it seems like the violence has just been getting worse.
Yeah, I think there are cases where you're seeing French troops have done an okay job of disarming some of the gangs that are causing trouble, mostly in the capital. A lot of the time they're outnumbered or they're not in the position geographically to help out. A lot of the conflicts flare up in places that are far outside the capital. For instance, the last time I was in Central African Republic, there was violence in a town called Bukavu, which is about 200 kilometers north of the capital, along just really atrocious roads that are basically impassable, especially during the rainy season. And there was really no force in that area except for the Seleka rebels and then these community militias who had risen up to attack them. So we saw a lot of violence and nobody was really there to step in to stop it. Another problem we're seeing with the peacekeepers, particularly the French, are accusations that they've taken the side of the Christian militias. So a lot of the Muslim community feel like they haven't been doing enough to protect them, so there's a little bit of mistrust of that force. In terms of the African peacekeeping force, MISCA, which is really still becoming established, they have about 5,000 troops on the ground and they're trying to get up to 6,000. So we'll see once they have a full force if they'll be able to conduct more regular patrols, if they'll be able to intervene when you see these street clashes rising up. So that force, you know, just the sheer number of people that will be on the ground could have a better impact.
Now, Gabe, you talk about this time that you spent in the CAR covering the violence there. What was it like being a journalist there?
Yeah, it's a very difficult place to work, mostly for logistical reasons. I mean, it's there aren't at the time there weren't really a whole lot of international journalists in the area, so it was very much new territory. Government officials didn't really know how to deal with you, and it was hard to figure out what sort of permissions you needed to go here or to go there. And also at the time, the rebels were really in control in most areas, so it was always a question when you entered a new territory of who was really in charge. So that was a bit of a problem. Well, up in Bukavu, it was all Seleka in charge, and they were a little surprised to see us show up there in this very remote town, but we're also very keen to show us some of the atrocities that had been committed against the Muslim community. So what I found was sort of interesting is that they were receptive to the media, aware that the kind of attention a journalist could bring to their plight could have a broader impact around the world.
And you talked about a specific instance you mentioned to me about how there's sort of this reverse filming going on, that while you were filming the violence that was going on, you yourself, you were also being filmed. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was one of these interesting moments that we had when I was in Bukavu. I was working with Seleka rebels and filming them and trying to understand what they were all about and what had gone on in that town. And while I was filming them and I was doing interviews with their commanders, one of their commanders had actually turned a little camera on me. So it was this very strange moment where I felt like I was really being watched by them. Later, they would show me some films they had of the attacks that had taken place. You know, they were recording, at least in that area, as much as they could. And the other thing that we're seeing, though, that is a bit troubling is that a lot of the violence that has taken place in the last couple of months, including these really vicious lynchings in the capital, a lot of them are taking place in front of news cameras. And this is another way that reporters are put in a very awkward position, because you start to get the feeling that while there is violence taking place off camera, a lot of it is being played up and really being, you know, exaggerated, or people are trying to put on a show, as gruesome as it is, for the media that's there. So you're stuck with this question of, responsibility, because of course you need to cover what's going on here. Yeah, it's an important crisis and one that was overlooked for many, many years, but you don't want to feel like you're perpetuating this violence by your presence. So that's something that to look out for. Even a recent Human Rights Watch report mentioned that a lot of this violence is taking place in front of cameras, and almost and all of these lynchings and really horrible acts that are taking place in the Capitol, there's almost always a news camera around.
VOA Nairobi correspondent Gabe Joselow. To escape the violence in the CAR, about 1 million people, some 20% of the nation's population, have fled their homes. Doctors Without Borders says efforts to protect civilians have been an utter failure.